welcome back to Mediums in Action with me, Martin Litt-Wilson, and my good friend and expert medium, Ian Doherty.
Good morning, people. Good morning, Martin. How are you?
I'm all good, thank you. All good. We're in the spooky season now, and everything's all Halloweeny, and we've got some good treats on Netflix at the moment. Are you? Did you watch Haunting of Bly Manor?
I did. I persevered with it. It took a little bit to get into, but I watched it all. And a couple of days afterwards, spirits. My guides just asked me to sort of write a little bit of sum up because it is almost like when you're watching a horror film and whatever, and then people ask questions. People might feel that that's what happens when you go to the spirit side. So I put something together and posed some questions, getting people to think. Is this a way a haunting works? Is this a way that works? You know what I mean? So I found it interesting, and now I'm going back and trying to rewatch The Haunted of Hill House now.
Yeah, I think what I like about both of them, and there's no spoilers, or we'll try not to give away any spoilers, but I think what I liked about both of them is they approach ghosts and spirits from very different angles that's not normally seen. People are saying it's the scariest thing they've ever seen and that sort of thing, and no doubt some people will find it quite scary, but what I've always liked about the guy, the showrunner who's done it, he's got the same sensibilities through it, where how spirit is in the background, and many a time as I've walked around a haunted house or whatever, I've seen similar spirits just stood there, and when you're watching Haunting of Bly Manor, if you look in the background, there's always a character stood there or walking past, and it reminds me of when I'm walking around. There's some of the amazing haunted places that we visited. It felt very, very similar in that respect.
Very, very much, but
so. The
The
storytelling I thought was really good, and there was one particular episode in Bly Manor, and I can't really talk much about it, but it was amazing. It was emotional, and also it was like talking about a historical ghost and what happened to historical ghosts, and the whole thing was amazing. It was good in that respect, and I think it's great when. And this is the problem with a lot of mediums and people who are involved in paranormal. They don't like it when people approach the subject and do something different. But I think it's great to see people's interpretation. I'm a big fan of comedy acts like Shirley Ghostman, who is a comedian pretending to be a medium, and because it sends up a certain aspect. The sort of the showman aspect of psychics, and I think it sends that up rather than the subject. Really, it's about the people within the paranormal it sends up, and I think that's a great thing to do. Is if you can't send yourself up, who can you send up?
So I always, both of us really, we sort of put over, talk about, ask those difficult questions, because if you can't stand up for what you believe in, why are you following it? You know what I mean? If you can't criticize, criticize is probably the wrong word. If you can't look at it and be in a constructive manner, what is this? What is that? Then I just feel, why the hell are you doing it? It's blind. You know what I mean? You're just following something because people are telling you to.
Yeah, it is being critical, and I think you're absolutely right. You have to be critical of paranormal or mediumship, and people like Alan Kardec. He didn't take things on face value, as we've talked about before, and I think it's one of those things that both of us do is that we're very critical about when we've had our own experiences with other people. We'll try to rule them out, and it's about kind of looking at the whole subject and treating it with a bit of humour. I remember last time, and it's a question that stuck with me, is that somebody was saying, I'm going to have to move away from paranormal, and my reply was that sometimes, like any subject, it can become all-encompassing, whether it's tennis or whether it's stamp collecting or whether it's something, you can become obsessed with your hobbies, and the paranormal, as anything, it's perfectly fine to step away. And talking of questions, I think this is quite one of our question episodes. I think we'll probably call it FAQ Spirit or something. But I'm going to start with this question that we've been asked. Ian, you tell me what you think to it. It's from Kimberly, and she says, how do people see images when using their third eye or clairvoyance? How do they appear to people? Do you want to start with that one? Because I've got a few ideas on that.
Okay, then, yeah. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for your question, Kimberly. When you're looking at this, how the third eye clairvoyance, it's very much related to our own personal experience in life, how we respond to teaching. How we the best way of putting it over. If you sort of pull over on the side of the road, you ask somebody, "Oh, can you tell me where such and such a place is?" And they either say, "Oh yeah, you go past here, past there, past this." Do you respond more to visual? Do you respond more to auditory? Take the second left, third right, traffic lights left, past the white pub, turn right. How are you responding to that info? Now, the reason I'm saying this, people who tend to read more and visualize that book as they're reading, as if they can smell they can feel the wind, they can smell the sea air and everything, that is more likely to be of a situation where people are more visual in their mediumship. Most people have what is termed as subjective clairvoyance. That is to say, it all appears within the mind's eye. It's the eidetic memory, it is, where it's almost at times so clear, it's like just watching a quick film in the cinema. The curtains open, then you see a little bit of image, you might get words with it, you might just see the image and then it closes. Depending on your own mediumistic ability, you might get little flashes of a sort of a flash of a red car, the flash of a wheel. You might get a ship's wheel. You might get something to do with what I used to get, somebody wearing crinkly tights, and it's very it's very flashy, it's there and it is gone. Depending on your own ability, it should be in colour. Some people see in shades of grey, or I wouldn't say black and white. It's more shades of grey, but that is to do with your own developmental process. Okay, now other people such as me, and others have what is termed as objective clairvoyance, which is still linked to the brain of the medium. So therefore, not everybody else, even if they are a medium, will be able to see it. And the way it was put over to me by my guide is the person talking to you is sending an image to your brain. It's already talking, and your brain gets that image and it seemingly throws it forward, and therefore you're watching almost like a hologram, and you can see the person moving around. If they move their arm, then you see them raising their arm or whatever, but it's always in colour. It can be a pitch black, as it is with paranormal areas. You go into a big mansion, whatever, but you can still see that spirit in full colour. So that says there that they're not part of the surroundings per se, because with your physical eye, you are seeing black and white. You can't see the person 2 or 3 foot from you, yet you can see the spirit in full colour. So it has to be linked to your brain, and with the own development of the medium in question and their ability and how they sort of visualize or auditory the information they're given. That's over to you, Martin. It'd be nice to hear your input on this.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you in that respect, in that that there is obviously some sort of projection happening. So the information's coming to your brain, and then I think your brain then puts that into a format that you'll understand. I think it's one of those things where people always say, your eyes can't be trusted because we see faces in trees and that sort of thing. And the reason is that's interpretation by your brain. Now, I think, as Ian says, spirit puts the information into your brain, and then that's relayed into what I think is, and Ian's mentioned this before, is like a 3D experience. And what I mean by that is it could actually be auditory, it can be, you can smells, you can, and also, as Kimberly asks, about images. Now, how does these images look like? What do they look like? Now, if I said to you, if you're listening at home, just close your eyes now, and I want you to think of a beautiful red rose flower. Now, you can see that it's got a green stalk, it's got a beautiful red, and that image might only last 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It might be in full color, it might be faded, it might be very strong. And that's how the images are when you get images from spirit. And would you agree with that, Ian?
Yeah, it is.
So it's very similar to that. Now, what's the difference then between your imagination and also the information that you get from spirit? And how we know this is one thing that you have to be as a medium, and I think this is what makes Ian a very, very good medium, is that he is very analytical. So he remembers these symbols and these experiences, and then he's able to relay that on. And I'm say for myself, I'll if I'm walking around a haunted house or I'm giving a reading, I'll get flashes, as Ian mentions. It could be a calendar with a date on there. Now, the reason, so obviously you are being told that it's a particular date for something. It might be a color, it might be a face, it might be wrinkly. These are all symbols that are coming through, whatever you want to call it, the ether, the the energy is coming through, and it's about recognizing these symbols and not casting these as being very random symbols, but actually to do with either, if you're doing a spirit guide session, then it could be related to do with your spirit guide. If you're giving a reading for somebody, then it's to do with those people. And it's about not overly interpreting either. So if you see a red rose, don't say, oh, it must be to do with love. It must be to do. Well, actually, how do you know that? Do you know that person didn't grow red roses? How do you know that a red rose wasn't placed on a coffin? It's nothing to do with love, but actually it's to do with something else. So if you do see images and you are giving a reading, try to be as clear and as honest as you can. And so if you do see something like a rose, you say, I can see a red rose. Does this have any symbology? I can then see this, I can see that. The interpretation is where mediums go wrong. And that's when they start suddenly going off on a track that ties in with their own psychology rather than actually what spirit's trying to tell them.
Very good point.
And what I would say, Kimberly, is she also asks, how do they appear to people? And again, do that experiment and try to think of particular things. Try to think of how a particular relation looks like if you've not seen them for a few months. Try to think of a celebrity. What do they look like? And you get this mind's eye vision. That is what you're looking for. Is you're looking for these visions, and you're also looking for how you feel yourself. Do you feel something different? Is there aches? Is there pains? Is there feelings? Is there sensations? Whenever you're in touch with this particular person, whether a spirit guide or a reading, you've just got to understand yourself. You've got to understand what you're feeling and how that interprets with when you're dealing with a particular spirit or giving a reading for somebody. Well, it's a good question, that, Kimberly. Thank you very much for entering that in.
Indeed, it was nice to talk about it so. So hope that's of help to people as well, Martin.
Absolutely. Shall we? Do you want to ask Craig? Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask this question to you, Martin. Bless you. This is from Craig. Thank you again, Craig, for your question. And he puts, I know our spirit guides are there to help us, but how fallible are they? How much trust should you put in them, or family oblique and the ancestor spirit for that matter? So should we trust our guides, or how far can we trust? And the same goes from family who are giving us guidance, advice.
I think thank you, Craig, firstly, for submitting that question. It's a really good question, and it does need raising as well. The name Spirit Guide it needs to be taken into a literal sense here, because it's a guide. it's not a ordnance survey map of life. That the information that you get from spirit, it's there for guidance and advice. So I would say that with spirit, I listen to spirit. I listen to the guidance that they're giving. Spirit would never say to you, quick, you need to go out and buy a scratch card. Quick, you need to put, or if I was you, you need to leave your wife and your family and run off. It's never like that. The guidance that you get from Spirit is far more subliminal. I want to say more nurturing, more subtle guiding into an area. So a subtle push into a particular area. So firstly, I trust my guides, and I certainly, when they've guided me or they've told me things, they've been absolutely bang on. The more that you build up your relationship with the guides, the more you will understand what they're telling you. Because again, as we mentioned with Kimberly, there is interpretation. So if they show you something and you misinterpret what they're telling you, then you'll say, well, my spirit guides they're rubbish. And people do say that, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So what you do have to do is understand what the signs are giving to you. And also as well is you have to step back a little bit. You can't say, oh, the reason why they're telling me that is because of this, this, and that. Because actually it's a whole bigger picture. I always remember about 3 years ago, my spirit guide was telling me you're going to get a message on November the 17th. And I thought, what? Okay, November 17th. So this was 2 weeks. I was waiting. I thought, where's this message coming from? It got to November the 17th, got to the night, and I'm thinking, I've not had anything. No spirits come to me, nothing like that. Went to bed. I thought, this is not a message. What's this about? And then I realized the next day I'd had a message from a friend, and a friend I'd not talked to for about 3-4 years. And they messaged me and through Facebook, just a simple message. And it started a whole chain of events, which led me onto a whole new career path, sort of a year down the line. So the turning point was on November the 17th. I did get a message, and the message was, I was expecting it to be from the guides, but actually the message, what I was told to take seriously, was actually from a friend. They knew that friend was going to come to me, give me a message, and that would change my career and my life. So, it's that sort of thing. Is why are they not clear? Why aren't they saying you're going to get a message from this person and this, and that? And the reason is because we've all got, we're all in control of what we do. And it's like when you give somebody a reading, a tarot reading, you say, this is going to happen, this, and that. They could go out and do something completely different. So I think the way that spirit guides work with you is about nurturing and moving you into a particular area or guiding you. As I say, guide is, it's not fixed in stone, but it's there to help you along. How do you feel about it, Ian?
No, I would have said very, very much along the lines of yourself, Martin, particularly in building up a rapport. I always refer to my guides as friends because that is what they are to me. William, I'll ask him a question, he will give me an answer, or he would say, by the way, on your upcoming, call it exam, you need to study this, and this, and that's what comes up. So they can help us in that manner, but it's a two-way street. You've got to be able to build up that trust in order to fully understand how that personality of your spirit guide is. Get to know them as much as you can, and then I would say here that gives you more understanding of how they're giving that guidance. So I think it's a very good question, very good answer, Martin.
Thank you. And let's move into this next question. And both Kimberly and Craig did also provide follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Firstly, can an ancestor be your spirit guide? And secondly, can you put your trust in family or ancestral spirits for that matter? Now, I think this is where we kind of differ a little bit about about the whole ancestors and spirit guides, because I think I think you don't believe, or you're not convinced that ancestors can be your spirit guide.
Yeah, I would say this is where I feel there's confusion in understanding. Spirit have always mentioned, when I've asked questions and all of this, and it's put over that we have, for instance, our grandparents, our parents, ourselves, and our children. We're all in that sort of a group entity. We're all there to experience one with the other, and close friends in our life. So when we have, say, our grandmother coming back and saying, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that," yes, it's their point of view, and I always find that when people's family members come through to me in order to relay an information to the person having the reading, it's always what they would have done. For instance, if somebody's having, what you call it, problems financially, then you could get Uncle Albert, who was very, very good in business, who would give you guidance from his point of view. Think of this, think of that, think of this. Never do they say you must. It's think of this, think of that, perhaps do this, So it'll be from their point of view, on how they would have handled things, or importantly, how they said, I handled it this way, it didn't work, I would advise you to do it different, but it's from there, but it's more of a helping, I don't feel that, like guides, for instance, for my sort of understanding. And if you believe that we've lived more than one physical life, then we can have the same guide over 3 or 4 of our lifetimes. So that guide is already is already in place. So that is one of the metering facts which I feel that family, isn't our guides.
Yeah, I think there's two separate things here. It's firstly, my beliefs is firstly, as same as Ian's, is that family aren't spirit guides. So if somebody let's say grandparent or great grandparent who's passed, they're not going to become your spirit guide because you were alive at the same time. Yep. And also, I don't feel that grandparents or people who have a very close emotional connection are going to be your spirit guides, because it just wouldn't make sense, because there is a lot of emotional baggage, there's family baggage. It's got to be separated. That's how I feel. And it's got to be separated so that there isn't a connection there.
Yeah.
In that respect. However, one thing I do believe that your ancestors are around you or do come to you. I don't feel that they are as persistent spirit, so with spirit guides, I believe that they're very, very close to you. I'd say, sort of 95% of the time they're around you, all, practically all the time. Anytime I can meditate and I know I can connect with my spirit guide, I know that I can suddenly talk to Joseph and he'll be there. I know that I can sit in a church and I know he's there. I could sit, I could sit in a children's play area while my kids are playing and think, oh my God, I can't stand the noise, but just calm myself down and I'm connected to my spirit guide and I can talk to him, which is great.
Yeah.
But with ancestors, I do feel it's a bit more than that. It's more about a sort of a connection that you have to work harder at. It's not something that ancestors are around you all the time. I think there is a tie there, and it's probably DNA orientated. It's probably some universal tie that we connect in with that ancestor. So, and when I mean ancestor, I'm talking generations. I'm talking probably hundreds of years ago, where we can connect with that person. And there's ways and means of doing it, where kind of meditation, constant meditation, see what comes through. You can't control who comes through. So if you know a great granddad from 1700s, the chances are that you're not going to bring them through, but you might bring through something else that you can communicate with. So I do believe the ancestors are there to help you, and I do believe that they can be called on. And my reasoning for this, before everybody says, well, you can't just say yes, they're there. My reasoning is every single civilization and every belief system is very ancestral orientated, from shamans, from African traditions. You've got all these traditions that do work with ancestors, and I've worked with my own ancestors as well through meditation, through more spiritism rather than spiritualism. So that's setting up kind of a table, like not an altar, but like an area dedicated to my ancestors, and I've asked them for help, or I've communicated with them, and I've had some great results from them. And then I've kind of researched, and that's why a couple of years ago I did my DNA, because I was intrigued, because I kept getting this sort of Scandinavian and not Scandinavian, sort of Baltic state sort of person coming into my life, and I think somehow they are connected ancestral from an ancestor perspective. But I would say trust them. But just to firm up, yeah, you can trust them, but as I say, use the term guide, not fixed advice. With anything that you deal with, or a spirit guide or ancestor, it's advice to help you see a bigger picture on the world around you.
Yeah, indeed.
Marion asks a question: do family members who have passed over visit in times of illness, as well as the time for us to depart from this life? I'll let you answer this one.
Thank you, Martin. The answer is yes. Now, the reason I'm saying this is that our loved ones have a vested interest, a continued interest, and that is one of the evidential factors of the survival of physical death. How we can tell that we do survive after what is termed as brain death. So spirit come round because they want to help. That is, at times people might be drawn to a medium, or think I need a reading, psychic reading on one of the phone lines, or whatever, and it sort of comes over that people, your loved ones want to help. Now, it's not just illness; it's when there's difficulties in the family. If there are what you call it squabbles, breakups, between brothers are falling out, or sisters are falling out, or cousins, and spirit, your loved ones want to have that fixed, or would like you to think, well, okay, talk to them. If it doesn't work, at least you can say you've tried, So yes, they do draw around. And one of the things, I used to be asked to go and visit people's houses because they got stuff going on, and more often than not, it turned out because they were arguing either over money or children, whatever, and that was causing all this hassle, not from their own energy, but from their loved ones making such a noise or a racket that they would then call a medium to come round, and they can then say, oh, can you tell them that they've got to talk to their Uncle Frank, or they've got to do this, they've got to stop falling out with Betty. There's all of that. So yes, they do come round. That is what is your take on that, Martin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever we need that, and I think it can be an illness in all its forms. So often people will say, and it'll get discouraging. We've talked about this, so I'll be very brief. But I think it's like when people are suffering from a mental capacity, if they are struggling mentally, and often they might have paranormal experiences, and again, I think a lot of that is related to spirit trying to help, trying to guide. And so I always feel that, certainly there's been times when I've been having my migraines, and I have been aware of a certain family member being there, my grandma. And I think it's interesting, I sense her because she was very nurturing. She was a nurse as well. So I think it's almost like something like Pokemon or something. The best the best spirit guide appears for the best job, which is true. Uncle Albert appearing for the financial stuff, and my grandma Lily appearing when I had bad migraines. So I certainly think that, and we also discussed as well last time that myself, Andy, and I both experienced or have experiences or knowledge of when it's time for us to depart, that family members have been seen. And there's a number of good books that have just come out now. So if anybody's looking for things for Christmas, there are some good books that have just come out talking about experiences of near death and what happens, which is interesting. Again, it's an interesting aspect and about it. But yes, family members do come in illness, in times of trouble, and also when we're ready to depart the physical life.
Yeah, thank you. Marion, thank you for your question. The last question, Martin, is from Shannon. How can you tell the difference between having psychic abilities to self-made beliefs abilities? I think that's along the lines of, is it me? Is it them? And I think it's a good question for you, Martin. In all honesty.
Yeah, I thank you, Shannon, for sending that in, and it's the biggest question that anybody on a spiritual journey always has is I don't know, it's just me. And it's interesting. I had a friend who went on I think it's called a cacao ceremony. She went along to this ceremony with other women celebrating the feminine energies. She went there. They drank this sacred cacao mix, which is basically chocolate, hot chocolate. Sorry, I'm really doing a very disservice here, but it's not. It's a beautiful spiritual ceremony, and it's a great way of women connecting together. And she came away and she said, I didn't feel anything. She said all these women were saying, oh my God, I felt so amazing afterwards, and I felt so good. And she said, was it them having their own experiences? And actually, there wasn't any experience happening. And it's interesting, actually. She suddenly realised that, and this is like 2 years down the line, that what happened is nothing happened at that ceremony for her. Nothing. She came away and thought, God, this is, maybe this is nonsense. But since then, and I had a good Skype with her a couple of weeks ago, and it turns out that since then, there's been a pathway of change all the way through her life. And subliminally, and she wasn't aware of this until I raised this when we went back through, but now she's got promotion. Now she's in a relationship that she's happy with. She not only finished one relationship, that a long-term relationship, she finished it and was able to move on. She moved on from a job that, again, she was struggling with, that she working long hours, wasn't being paid enough. And now she's in a better job. She's now got a promotion. And I said, well, if you look through this and look through the last 2 years, that ceremony didn't work at that time, but it certainly worked on a mental capacity and drove you forward. And it drove you subliminally. It drove you forward to make the changes in your life. Now, how does that compare with our psychic abilities real, our mediumship abilities real? And it's a question of, like my friend, she did not take notice of what changes were happening in her life. She was not aware of what was happening around her. A good way of certainly, I always say, is when you start doing mediumship, is get a journal, get a diary, and every time you experience something, write something down. If you notice something, write it down. And there's no point in reviewing every week or every day and going through, but go back every 2 months, have a look through, and suddenly you will start to see a pattern. You'll start to see a build-up, and that's where you will get your evidence, and that's where you will get your confidence that actually there is something in this. There's something here. There's something far beyond just imagination happening. There's something else. So when you're doing your spirit guide works, when you're giving readings, or whenever you're meditating, write down your experiences and keep returning over and over to them. And that's the best way, because that's where you'll get your evidence. And it'll be proven to you, believe me. You'll be amazed at what kind of experiences you're having. So that's the difference, I think. I mean, do you want to add anything to that as well?
No, I think that's very, very good guidance, that, Martin. I don't need to add anything. You've answered that very, very well. Thank you. And thank you, Shannon, for your question. Very, 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 very good. Some nice questions there, Martin, overall.
Yeah, I love doing these questions, and because the questions are often from a place. They're from a place that from somebody being very inquisitive, and from experiences as well, and also as well, it's often questions that you don't realise you've got to answer as a tutor, Do you know? We might, as we're creating a course, you might not think, well, do we have to mention about family members passing over, or do we have to mention how valuable our spirit guides are? Which is a great question, Craig. And it's that sort of aspect which I really enjoy doing these questions. So if you do have questions, please email them in, and we will ask them. We're going to start doing at least one your questions session every month, and separate it away from our regular podcast. But great question session again, Ian.
Yes, Martin, it is, and like I say, it reinforces our own understanding, and at times it can push us into, I didn't realise that, or and it gets us to look, because both of us will go and think, I'll just check up on that, I'll ask my guide and I'll work with it, and we get better at the questions, because we're enhancing our own knowledge. So these are very, very sort of the question sessions are of import to you asking the questions, as it is to Martin and I, so thank you.
Yeah, and we've had some great response as well from people listening as well, who've enjoyed the questions, and it's no doubt answered some of their questions as well. So, well, thank you very much, everybody. And if you can, as I say, if you want to drop us some questions, you can email us through our website, or you can contact us through our Facebook page. And as I say, send in your questions. Don't be afraid. We're happy to go through other questions that maybe have been asked before, but you want us to give us a bit more give a clearer question. We're very happy to revisit questions. So please send them in. And thank you very much, Ian. This has been a great podcast again.
Thank you too, Martin. Bless you.